Crime victims become victims generally through no fault of their own. Something just happens, and it happens with spontaneity, and suddenly they find themselves in this incredible fog. And they look to law enforcement, they look to the district attorney's office, they look to Renetta Johnson and Waymakers and all of her great staff to clear the fog. Sometimes we're successful in clearing the fog for victims, and many times we're not. Many times victims are very, very pleased, irrespective of the difficulty that they're facing, with how we do as arresting agencies and prosecution agencies. And sometimes, quite frankly, they're not. Sometimes victims are very, very frustrated with us, the system, including the courts. I learned a long time ago, when I got into this business over 30 years ago, that all we can do on the prosecution or a law enforcement side is put our best foot forward in the most incredibly difficult situations we find ourselves. I think we do the finest, most incredible work of all law enforcement agencies in the world. I'm so proud of the work that we do. And sometimes we fail. And since this monument has arrived and I've walked into work, I'm really glad it's here. It is a really important symbol to see this every single day when we walk here into work. It's easy sometimes to not remember or to forget or to be preoccupied. And this monument is not just a symbol of those who have passed, but it's also a magnificent symbol of those who have survived. It's for both. The other thing, there's two other things here I'd like to point out besides the building and the fog, and that's the weight of this edifice. It's the burden of a victim. I think this thing is 8,000 pounds. And I've known so many of you are here today, and I know that the burden of being a victim is heavier than the weight of this boulder for you. I know that no matter what, when I speak to you, the loss of your child, even if it was 40 years ago, a decade ago, last year, it is as fresh of the weight of your life and your emotion as the weight of this boulder. In the Jewish tradition, there's a tree of life. And I look at this tree behind me here as a tree of life. So we have these great edifices of law and order. We have the weight and the structure of the crime victims. And we have the remembrance of always knowing that there's a tree of life. So whether there's a survivor or somebody who's passed, it's all of our responsibility to always remember and never forget. And you've heard that in the Jewish tradition. You've heard it in all religions through time. And I ask the religious leaders to bless this because it needs God's touch. It needs to be touched by God. That's why this is here. It's now been touched by God. It's blessed by God. We are touched by God. We are blessed by God. The burden of this boulder, the tree of life, the law and order, and it is our job to always lift the fog. God bless you all.